So Dennis, do you want to introduce the meeting?
Yeah, we are here to talk about integration of the WYSIWYG editor, the rich editor, Markdown editor that Enrique came up with based on TipTap and ProseMirror into Editor Lite as an extension. So to see whether it's possible at all. And spoiler alert, it is possible. It works flawlessly. It's just beautiful. Now, before we begin, let's talk just briefly about what's going on. So last week we had the walkthrough from Enrique about the architecture of the WYSIWYG editor, how it is built, what is the what are the underlying technologies. It's ProseMirror, it's Markdown for tokenizing the Markdown, and it's TipTap as the sort of the editing interface of the solution. Am I right, Enrique?
That's right. That's basically the architecture we're proposing for the WYSIWYG editor.
Cool. Thank you. So it's technically like before we proceed, I just had one question. So technically, we do not, like, in general, I'm not saying that this is what we have to do, but in general, we do not even need to use TipTap, right? Like the parts that we are interested in are ProseMirror and Markdown, right? TipTap is useful to build the application technically, like with the GitLab UI components and View components, right?
What TipTap does is making us productive. So ProseMirror was not designed to be used directly. There is a toolkit to implement rich text editors. But then everything that is that we have to do to provide a visual user interface, like a toolbar, or when you want to select some text and display a menu to change the format of that text selection. TipTap provides an API as an infrastructure to implement that easily.
Right. So that's what I thought. Like, so technically we're getting the convenient abstraction in form of TipTap, right? It's like it's even good because we, as I said, we are already using TipTap. It's already part of GitLab, so we do not use any new dependency.
So an observation about that: we are not using TipTap yet in GitLab in production.
We're pulling in all like extensions and the different like extensions from ProseMirror, but we're pulling in different things for generating the GitLab flavored markup. We're pulling things from TipTap.
There was a previous attempt to create a WYSIWYG editor in GitLab, but that didn't come to fruition.
Oh, okay. Probably
So there wasn't enough resources like to continue with the implementation. And at some point, we rolled back all of those, all of that. Well, we were switching from some custom GFM code to convert Markdown to HTML. But then so we tried to switch to TipTap and ProseMirror. It didn't work, and we rolled back. But so we have all of those dependencies in GitLab, but we are not using them in production.
Wait a second. But you're saying that the scripts in JavaScript /behaviors/Markdown are not used? Those are dead?
That's right.
Oh, wow. Okay. That confused me. Thanks for the clarification. Nevertheless, we are using those now.
We will.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's really nice to know, because I thought this is the part that we're using for GitLab flavored markup, and seems like it's not, but it's great to have that basis anyway already ready.
What we will learn from that is that one way of going about this to deliver a WYSIWYG editor quickly in places like the issue description and the comment box is that we can convert the Markdown using our Markdown preview endpoint. And then we can map that HTML that returns the Markdown preview endpoint to a pros mirror document. So all of the dead code that is in the behaviors folder is doing that. Is like teaching pros mirror how to convert that HTML to a pros mirror document model. So that's something that I think that we can learn more, from.
Okay,
use it.
very well. That's really good to know. Okay, thanks for the clarification. So this was the part that I thought we were using already, but we are not. So, but this already gives us the basis for the extensions to use in TipTap or like in this WYSIWYG editor. Okay, now how do we approach this? So let me just demo the state of the proof of concept that I have now, and we'll talk through that afterwards. Do we have any questions before we go on? No. Yes. No. Okay. Cool. Let me just share. Okay, I'll share this screen. Apparently, this can go away. So, okay, we are on this. I've started implementing this for blobs, just regular blobs, just because I don't know why. Just because blobs might benefit from this as well. So. Blobs, the editing interface for the blobs is already driven by Editor Lite, right? So that was easy thing to start with. Here you're seeing the editor being split into, right? So you see the Markdown on the right, and you see the WYSIWYG editor on the left. It's not going to be like this, obviously. It's just for us to see how these two things get updated when we do changes in one or another one. Let's just try doing this. So while I'm in the, I'm sorry, just a second. I'm back. While we are in the code editor, we don't do anything with the WYSIWYG editor. Like I envision this as we are getting to, first of all, it would be great to have a setting for the user. Like I prefer WYSIWYG editing. And then when the user has this on, whenever they get to a Markdown file, they get the WYSIWYG editor by default. Still, there will be Editor Lite underneath that is catching all the things. So they will not be shown side by side normally. That's why we do not update each of them while we are typing, just to save time and to save the events, the events noise, obviously. So, and that's how how it was done in the demo that you showed, Enrique, where you didn't have two tabs. I mean, two views side by side. You have to switch between tabs, and then you make the synchronization of the content between these two, right? Cool. So this is content. Okay. So we are in the text editor. We keep going. But then what's going on if we focus in the WYSIWYG editor? So the content gets updated. So we synchronize the content when we focus in or focus out of the WYSIWYG editor. We do not listen to any events in the code editor because still code editor is the editor and it has to be updated all the time. So whenever we do manipulations with the WYSIWYG editor, all of them have to be mapped to the content editor, to the code editor, but not the other way around. Because when we, for example, click commit changes, we take content from the code editor, not from the WYSIWYG. So we can obviously do some blah, 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 blah. And then when we focus out of this WYSIWYG editor, the code editor gets updated. So we can add, for example, I don't know, we can add the list items. Oh, I'm sorry. the list items, for example, and then they show up here in the WYSIWYG editor. So WYSIWYG editor has been implemented, as I said, as the, this is not so interesting now. So WYSIWYG editor has been implemented as the extension to Editor Lite. And in this extension, I took your whole proof of concept, Enrique, and just wrapped it into the extension. So it's not like I was trying to mimic anything. I wasn't trying to change, at least not a lot of things. Like I did, I had to write new view component in order to establish the bridge between Editor Lite and the WYSIWYG editor to establish this communication, but not more than that. So we are going to get to the code now. So far, things are fine, right? So we also reflect what's going on, and it's just working fine. There are some glitches when we communicate between WYSIWYG editor and Editor Lite, but we'll get back to those in a second. One of those you see instantly. So if we, for example, remove this and we use the markup that is actually required, but when one pushes the new documentation to our documentation portal, Danger will, or I don't know, I don't remember the job name. I think it's Danger, will complain if you are not using the, it's the Markdown linting. So if you are using the asterisk, that is still the valid bullet list item marker, the linter will complain and the job will fail. So it will require you to use the dash. And it does work, but if we take the content out of the WYSIWYG editor, they get converted into the asterisks. So technically, this document won't pass the linting to our documentation portal. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind and probably take a look. But this is really premature optimization. Right now, it's just something to keep in mind. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Why linting is important at this point? Like, how that affect the integration between the WYSIWYG editor and Editor Lite? I don't understand the relationship.
No, like if at some point we decide to use this as the editor for documentation portal, we will have to make sure that it passes the linter there, right? That's why I'm saying this is something, a premature optimization at the moment. But if we are about to introduce any linting, that is, for example, for documentation portal, this document won't pass the linter. That's the only point.
That makes sense. That means that the Markdown that the WYSIWYG editor produces is not compatible, or it doesn't pass the linting rules, right?
Right. That's exactly it. So I assume it's just we just need to tweak it, really like minor tweak to say like, okay, a bullet list item is not asterisk but dash, and that's because technically, as I said, asterisk is still valid markdown for the bulleted lists. It's just our linter prefers dashes over asterisks and fails if we don't follow that. So this is something just to keep in mind if and when we get to that point. It's just something that is not very important now, and it definitely doesn't have anything. It doesn't affect the integration and compatibility of these two editors. So let's get to the code finally. I think this is the right one. So we remove the terminal. Now I have the branch. Yes, I think I've pushed it right. So it's up there because the commit went on right in the beginning of our call. But let's take a look at what's going on. So this, where is this? Yeah. So there are plenty of commits here, but some of them are, so the first one is just updates to Editor Lite itself to introduce new functionality that we will need. Then I just copy over everything that was in the WYSIWYG editor's proof of concept. and then some tweakage goes on there. So the most important things are to look at are definitely the extension itself, and this is all it takes to connect. Or no, I'm lying. This and one view component. So this is what is needed on the Editor Lite's side of the things to make things work together between these two editors. Editor Lite supports extensions, and every extension can has this init method. So this is the method that every extension can have to introduce some not the extension to the editor, but to set up editor to some degree, to introduce new elements, to do different things. So in this particular case, we are introducing I'm sorry.
Question, Dennis. Sorry. So when this init method, can we pass parameters to it when we're initializing it?
Nope.
Okay.
Not yet. But if there is a use case for that, we can definitely do that.
So one of the use I see that the WYSIWYG view, I think that it should be configurable, because imagine that we are implementing. Well, we are using the WYSIWYG view in features like the wiki and a feature like the static site editor. Both offer a rich text editing experience, right? But they have very different features. They support very different syntaxes. So is there a way that we can customize this WYSIWYG extension to pass custom modules? Depending on which feature is using that using the extension. For example,
that's a good question.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question. We cannot at the moment. So every instance of the WYSIWYG editor will get the same set of options. I'm not sure whether it's good or bad. We definitely can try doing this, but then if we need to send the parameters to this init function, then we just need to make adjustments to the Editor Lite. That's it. The init is implemented as, so when we use any extension in Editor Lite, we just say, okay, for every extension, we just run this init method, and then take the rest of the remaining methods as the extension of the editor. So that's pretty much it. So if we need to pass the parameters, we can do this. It's just a matter of specifying how those parameters are sent to the extension from the end users, for example, from the actual implementation in the blobs or in snippets or something like this. And what makes this process a bit challenging is that we also have the view component for Editor Lite, and passing the extensions are passed there as just plain strings of the path to the extension. So there is no way of passing any options there. But again, we can take a look at that and sort that out. No problem, I think.
But perhaps to make my point more concrete, we can see the code, how we initialize a WYSIWYG editor. So to know how those extensions are initialized, and we can have a better understanding of that. What do you think?
Sure.
So can you open?
Let's take a look.
Open the gfm editor.js, the file that is in the editor directory. The directory is so see, this editor class is like basically the main import of TikTok, and then we are passing there pretty much all of the features that the WYSIWYG editor would support. So the idea is that as an initial demo, I just take those arguments, created these parameters where you pass an array of extensions. But That's good. That would be like the goal, like to
Right.
actually expose that kind of API to a specific
That's the
features in
thing.
GitLab.
That's the thing. As you might see, this particular editor, this particular file has been changed comparing to your proof of concept. And the reason why I had to change this exactly because I had to pass the options that were not acceptable previously. So I removed those hard-coded extensions, and now I actually used all the extensions that we have in the behaviors Markdown folder. So we use those extensions here. We use the extensions that are passed to the constructor, and also we have the options. And how we are using this, we are going to look at in a second. Let me just get back to the extension part at the moment to show what is it responsible for. So we have this. We create a panel widget. So Editor Lite allows users to create 3 types of widgets: content widget, overlay widget, and panel widget. So the first 2, content widget and overlay widget, come from Monaco. They are native widgets of Monaco. The third one, the panel widget, is the widget specific to Editor Lite. What does panel widget do? What is the difference between these 3? So let me switch to the browser. So the an overlay widget would create a widget that is fixed on the screen of the editor. Whenever, like, if you scroll, the widget stays there. It's useful to show some, I don't know, validation information or some other document-wide information. There is another type of widget, the content widget, that is connected to a particular place in the text. This is useful to show, for example, some particular errors or something when validating. So it is related to a particular place in the document. And the panel widget, the concept that is introduced by Editor Lite, is the widget that exists outside of the editor's context. So this is the panel widget. It lives outside of the editor. So it's like this standalone thing. And this is what allows us to create, in the future, to create the toolbar for the Editor Lite, to create the navigation tree when we are dealing with the multi-file solutions, and different things. So WYSIWYG Editor in this particular implementation is implemented as panel widget. But as I said, this is just to demo the differences between these 2 editors right now. In the future, we will definitely make it full screen. And the way I envision this is that if I'm in the text, in the code editor, I actually use the overlay widget. For example, the icon with the preview icon, something like button with the preview icon there. So I click it, and my code editor is turned into the WYSIWYG editor. And this button gets converted into the code icon or something like this. But that's another story. This is panel widget, the new concept. And this is technically the main part of the extension. Another important part, obviously, is we initialize the view. So the interesting part is that Editor Lite itself is framework agnostic. However, one can use any framework they need in the extensions. So in this particular case, we use Vue. Would we want to write an extension in React? No problem. Angular? No big deal. So in this particular case, since we are using Vue in the product, we are using a Vue here. So we create the new Vue application in order to accommodate our Vue-based WYSIWYG editor. And in this case, I had to write, as I said, one more Vue component as the bridge between the existing WYSIWYG editor and Editor Lite. And this component looks like this. This is technically, I took the basis from the stories file in the proof of concept of yours, Enrique, and converted it into more like more suitable format here. So this is based on that story thing. So we have, instead of, I just renamed the methods update WYSIWYG and update Markdown to not confuse with the ones that we import. Not a big deal, I think. The main things here are, the main change here is that in the created hook, right? First of all, we inject the instance. This is passed down from the extension. So instance is the Editor Lite instance. So should the extension, should the WYSIWYG editor in this particular case, do something with the Editor Lite instance, it has all the power and all the possibilities to do that. So all the like the full API of Editor Lite is available to WYSIWYG editor. But getting back to this component, so we inject the instance, and then in created hook, I moved it to created instead of mounted because it was in mounted. Now it's in created, where we actually initialize this main WYSIWYG editor, right? And this is where I actually needed the editor to accept the options. So instead of passing just the extensions as it used to, we also pass to handlers for on focus and on blur events. And this is, as I said, on focus, we update the Markdown, the WYSIWYG editor based on the code editor. And on blur, we update the code editor based on the WYSIWYG editor. So that's pretty much it. This is all it takes to communicate between these two. I also went on and not implemented, but extended some of the things. As you saw, instead of like picking particular extensions, I just use all the extensions that we have in the product now in the editor extensions. So it extends our capabilities. And also, I also copied the tokens in order to support like inline code, fans code, things that things that we definitely need. So I copied these things from the default Markdown parser in Prose Mirror, and now we can write, I don't know, inline code or like fans code, like JavaScript. Oops. Const foo equals, I don't know, a, and then we get all these things. So the front matter is supported, obviously. I think it's.
Can you make some cool changes in the WYSIWYG area? I'd be curious, like how it kind of transpiles to code if we do like something more like.
Well, what can I do? Like we don't have a lot of options here to do, but okay. This is one more thing that I noticed. Like if I try to change the heading for a subheader now, it changes the first line as well. That's something to keep an eye on, and it is updated here as well to the wrong thing. This is something I'm not sure it is introduced now or it's somewhere deep in the edit. But okay, what do we like? I don't know. We don't have a lot of opportunities here to do the things because it's only like, okay, bold. Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Apparently I broke something here and the toolbar doesn't work. Boom. Okay. Boom. I can type in the text.
Perhaps
Yes.
changes should come from the code editor, right? Like it is constantly synchronizing the code editor and the WYSIWYG. And
no, like while I'm in the WYSIWYG editor, it's only WYSIWYG editor that is working, right?
okay.
While you're here, no Editor Lite interference should happen, and only when I do, like when I focus out of the WYSIWYG editor, like now, the text in the Editor Lite gets updated and Editor Lite kicks in. So this is something to keep in mind. But this is interesting. I'm not sure. I didn't fire up the GitLab UI for proof of concept. to see whether it's working there. But I'm sure it's working there, right, Enrique?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So do we have anything in the? There are no JavaScript errors, nothing like this. So this is odd. So, oops. I suddenly switched to the editor here. So the text gets updated, but we cannot inject any markup here. That's odd.
Dennis,
Okay, and
I have an unrelated question.
yeah,
I mean, to
sure.
that problem. So that's something that probably we can fix quickly. But my question is related to the toolbar. So
Yeah.
Eventually, we will have a single toolbar that should work for both editors, right? Oh, sorry, for both modes, for the WYSIWYG mode and the text mode. So in the case of the WYSIWYG editor, the way that the toolbar works is that the editor class that comes from TipTap exposes commands that we execute on a text selection. How do you envision having a common interface that knows how to interact with the commands that come from the WYSIWYG editor, and also that it can change or make changes in the code editor from Editor Lite? Like, how can we have this common toolbar that interacts with both objects, if that makes sense?
Yeah, obviously it does make sense, and that's how it should be done. No question there. And I don't think there will be any issue with that, as long as we have some public API to introduce the how do we do this update at the moment. So let me take a look at the editor content. All right, here we go. So these are the buttons responsible for the things. Oh, is active heading. Right, okay. Is active. Oh, I think I messed up something, because is active is not available here. So I lost something probably when I was moving the thing here. Comments and active. But nevertheless, like, we have these comments. Oh, right, here we go. Default. So, okay, so we can pass the comments to the WYSIWYG editor, right?
So perhaps what we can do is like having this same toolbar, right?
Yeah.
That editor menu bar component is getting access to a TipTap editor class. Perhaps it can have access as well to the Editor Lite editor instance, right? And then we can execute either the both command from the Editor Lite or the one from TipTap, depending on the view.
Yes, that's. But as I said, I think there should be no problem with the shared toolbar. I didn't have time to do that, because obviously this is not looking good. So it has to be just shared title and branch thing, and then the toolbar should be shared for the two. So that definitely has to be done. But the thing is that if only we have the access to the public API access to pass these commands, for example, from the extension side, then we can pass them to the shared toolbar, and then the shared toolbar will have a way of updating this code and updating the Markdown code editor. So I don't envision any issue with this. This is going to be not so hard, and it's we can even take, for example, this existing toolbar and make it work for the WYSIWYG editor instead of this toolbar. should we want this? But probably we don't, because this, I don't think this is the GitLab UI components. I don't think so. So yeah, no, I don't answer directly your question, but I don't see any potential issue with this.
Sounds good. I think that even I, just looking at the string and the way that the code is structured,
Yeah.
I can see that it is possible.
Yeah.
Dennis, other question. I don't want to leave this meeting without fully understanding how we are going to implement the user experience that we provide in the study site editor, where the WYSIWYG mode works as a standalone editor. Even if it is not, from a technical point of view, a standalone one, the WYSIWYG view is working like full screen, and then you switch between the code and the WYSIWYG modes. So I didn't fully understand when you explained the panel widget and that we can eventually make it full screen. So could you go over that again? And
yeah, let's. I'll show you a really quick and dirty way. So every panel widget accepts 3 parameters. Oops, no, accepts 3 parameters for getting its position. So you can place it on top, like above the editor, to the right, below, and to the left of the editor. So this is just the position. In this case, we are saying like place it to the left. And then it has the width index and height index. Instead of specifying hard-coded pixels, I'm using just the ratio of the editor's height. So if we say, for example, instead of half the width of the editor, so as you can see, we are taking half of the width now. If I say take full width, it's gonna look a bit odd with the editor still sticking on the side, but it gives the idea of how this is supposed to look like. Like that blinking obviously won't happen. So, and this is how we do the thing. So yeah, not a big deal. So technically, the answer is we somehow remove the editor light from the view. It's either hidden using CSS, or like we can even say, okay, visibility hidden to it, and that's it. We have the full size, full screen WYSIWYG editor. That's pretty much it. Does it answer the question?
yeah, it does. Gives me an idea
Okay, cool.
of how I could work.
Cool.
So I have one question. Does this also like mean we like could we like prepare like the WYSIWYG version of Editor Lite with like a plugins? Is this something we can really configure as a kind of like a pre-configured layout? This is how it looks, and if you kind of open it up for the WYSIWYG kind of work or so, that says, okay, you will just kind of be presented with this view by default, and it's like pre-configured to say this is exactly how we want it to behave with all the plugins.
That's a brilliant question, man. Because technically, that's where Editor Lite shines, right? So we can. It's all about just adding the extensions to the Editor Lite, and we can even prepare a view component saying like rich text editor that under the hood will include the Editor Lite view component with predefined set of extensions, and you're done. That's it. As easy as that, no problem. We can use this to replace the description fields, the comment fields, anything. So yeah, I think it shouldn't, like, the places where we do this replacement don't even need to be view aware, because, and this is again, like, I can talk about nice things in Editor Lite for hours, obviously, but this is, as I said, this is one of the strongest points. Like, the burden of pulling in dependencies and managing those is on the extensions. So we can use WYSIWYG editor with Vue-powered toolbars and everything in any surrounding, because the Editor Lite itself is framework agnostic, and it pulls the extension, and the extension pulls in everything it needs. So this is beauty. This is the beauty of Editor Lite, because it doesn't need Vue to be around. It's framework agnostic. So we can, yeah.
When, let's see if I understand the, the extension vision. So if we have two editors, let's say the side-by-side editor and the wiki, and both editors have a slightly different WYSIWYG modes, do you envision having two different Editor Lite extensions for those two WYSIWYG modes?
That would be the simplest, obviously. And like you saw how small the extension is, right? So technically, we create the extension with the new set of options to be sent to the WYSIWYG editor, and that's as simple as that, done within 5 minutes, right? We don't need to create any internal logic to check whether we are on this view or this view or that view. Just two different extensions, done. I might sound like overly optimistic, and I'm afraid of myself sometimes as well. But seriously, like whenever I accept a challenge to implement something in Editor Lite, it just works, man. Like I'm scared myself, and I don't know when it will shoot me in the foot, but it just works. So that's really cool.
Well, we can make anything work, Dennis. Well,
oh yeah.
The actual question is how much it costs.
Well, like this implementation, like you had a really good document way of using the editor, the WYSIWYG editor, right? So that helped a lot. Should I need to dive into all these things myself, like it would take me quite a while, quite a lot of time. But with this example, it took me like take your proof of concept, implement here, and do some of those reading and figuring out those things about the extensions and tokens in order to extend the code to code and different like inline code blocks and things like this. So it all took me about 2 days, like a day yesterday and half a day today. So 1.5 days. And we have such a great tool now. Like we can implement the WYSIWYG editor anywhere in the product. How cool is that, man? I know you spent enormous amount of time figuring this out, but that's the cool thing. Like we can do the research separately on different things, and then we have the platform that can combine all those researches without stepping into each other's toes. That's the beauty.
Cool. Well, we are 3 minutes before wrapping up, right? So, Dennis, thank you so much for.
I'm fine with keeping this discussion if you want to. Like I'm not in rush.
No, I think that well, we have the kickoff meeting in 10 minutes, right?
Theoretically. Yeah. The next meeting starts at like 30, so we have like another 13 minutes if we want to.
Yeah. So
okay. Sounds good. Well. So I think that what I would like to do now is explore the proof of concept that you implemented and see how. Well, I think that there are things that I would like to have more information about. For example, I want to understand how we can implement that toolbar that is shared between the two modes. I want to understand more. I want to understand more also about the extensibility of the WYSIWYG mode across all of the features. I know that probably the simplest way is just like creating 3 Editor Lite extensions. But I want to understand that a bit more. But your introduction and everything that you've shown now is like it really speeds up that process.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that technically, what what happens now is that we have WYSIWYG properly scoped, right? It is in the extension, sort of a bubble, right? The toolbar that we would be implementing should be outside of this scope, really. So because it's going to be shared toolbar, it might be useful for different things, right? And as I said, I have an issue to introduce the toolbar because I want this toolbar to be universal to the point of every extension being able to add items to this bar or remove the items from that bar. So that, for example, we have a toolbar and it is used for Markdown files, So we add all of those like bullet lists, headers, things. So all those buttons come from the Markdown extension. Not from the WYSIWYG editor extension, but from the Markdown extension. Then, for example, we are editing, I don't know, like what we can do, like any other type of file, right? So we can introduce the buttons that, for example, do like injection of some code snippets. For example, from the snippets in your GitLab account. Right. So I want a button that will allow me access to those snippets. If I, for example, work with Ruby or with JavaScript. So that sort of flexibility, and this toolbar is outside of the scope of the WYSIWYG editor, and I have the issue for that to create such a proof of concept for such toolbar, and because I want again the extensions to be able to do different things when they are used. Instead, without touching the Editor Lite core.
So now that probably we want to actually push forward the development of that toolbar, how do we schedule those resources as part of the WYSIWYG editor development or as part of the Editor Lite development?
I'm not sure we have to separate those developments now, since we are the same team, right? So that's up to the manager to decide who will be responsible for that. I have some ideas on how this should be implemented, how to implement this to follow the concepts that are in the Editor Lite and make it like extensible again. And that's the thing. But there is, again, this will be an extension because, again, not all the instances of Editor Lite need toolbar. So this is the perfect candidate to be an extension. So the toolbar itself will be an extension. And that's why anybody can do this, because it's going to be properly scoped. It's going to be an extension. The main thing is to have the proper vision of how we want this to work and how it should be built. That's the only thing.
Cool. So I would love to have a look at that issue. I don't know if it has details of how do you plan to design it, but I think it's something that is worth that I become familiar with as well.
The only thing that I would like us to keep in mind is that apparently we will be willing to implement this with Vue components, right? Like for it to be consistent with the rest of the product. And this might be a bit of not a problem, but pulling Vue in different extensions could be a bit of a performance bottleneck. So if we could implement this with just HTML and our utility classes from GitLab UI, that would be perfect. If not, we just say, okay, we implement this with Vue and be done with that.
So that's it. Well, perhaps a way that we could do this is like seeing the toolbar as something that is above the editor, because in that way we can use Editor Lite, like we can design an Editor Lite extension, for example, to edit Markdown that is exposing commands to make the text, the modifications, like inserting some characters to make a text selection bold or emphasized.
Yeah.
In the same way that that TikTok does, right? Or Prose Mirror, like it exposes comments that are an API to modify the content, but then the visual part is decoupled from the actual editor.
Yes. Yes. So technically, this is a very good point. Like every extension has the context of and knows about the Editor Lite instance. So every extension has this keyword pointing to the instance this extension is used at. So all the extensions know about the instance. And the way I envision this, the toolbar should be implemented as the panel widget. Panel widget that goes above the Editor Lite with, like, I don't know, the ratio 0.10. So like to take 10% of the height of the editor, or even 5% of the height of the editor.
It's above visually, but not like I was not talking about visually being above the editor, but actually like being a module that can call the editor API.
But that's every extension. Like extensions are really decoupled, right? And as long as you intentionally do not couple those, they're decoupled. They're not like above Editor Lite or on the same level. They're just like separate modules. That's it. So they're the only thing that connects them to the Editor Lite is this keyword. Otherwise, they're completely separate.
Okay.
Because we come close to time or so. First of all, I'd be curious, like Marcel, to kind of throw you into the mix here. Like, what is your impression or so after kind of listening into? So, if you have like any kind of like thoughts to share.
Yeah, I was really mostly just listening to be sure I'm up to date on what's happening, to be informed. I love what I'm seeing. I think anything we can do to make sure that WYSIWYG, but also Markdown editor is working both at the same time in different situations, in different contexts, that's just going to bring us forward so much. And giving us this kind of flexibility, it's going to be a huge upgrade.
Cool. Thank you.
My 2 cents I also want to throw in the mix. So I really like what I saw as well. Like I like the concept of things being like kind of like puzzle pieces or so, and whatever kind of things we try to solve for our users, for our product, we just kind of take these pieces and assemble them in certain directions or so, or combinations that kind of like just yields perfect user experience. I really like this approach. And we say, okay, like on the wiki, we want to use WYSIWYG for people like to edit or so, but also if they want to switch over to the editor view, because they just feel, some developers feel more comfortable in working in kind of like code per se. Like I really like this approach that we can find like really custom configurations for each kind of like setting where we kind of try to achieve it. So I'm curious.
Let me just give one point about this particular thing. Like as I mentioned, we can even like we are talking about nav and settings during the next half a year, right? And we can have a setting on the user level saying like whether you prefer WYSIWYG editor for Markdown or code editor. And if I, for example, select the code editor, I don't need to pull in additional bytes for introducing the WYSIWYG editor. And that's what I'm going to do because I just like to write Markdown as the code thing. And this is the beauty. And if user says, I prefer WYSIWYG, he will get the WYSIWYG right away without this code thing, even though it will be there under the hood.
I really like this approach. And if we can like unify some of our technology and really take one thing as the underlying thing that kind of holds everything together, we probably also need to revisit if Editor Lite is the proper name for this technology. Like that kind of like sounds so, it sounds like it's less than it actually is. But I kind of really like the approach for us as a team, that we don't kind of create silos going forward to say, oh, like this person is responsible for WYSIWYG. Like I really want all of us to be responsible for the WYSIWYG as an extension, for example, and that we all kind of share and can contribute and feel comfortable in contributing. But I also kind of really want to have Enrique coming in with like all the knowledge that he says, okay, I feel like very big ownership about everything, and I feel comfortable in contributing to Editor Lite as is right now to kind of provide more extensions or make kind of the things more usable. And that's for me the ideal state where I want to go to as a team. And I feel at least this is like a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I want to bring this back to one point that you mentioned, Dennis. We are looking at user settings, for example, and making this a setting. And what I want to make sure is we can also have multiple contexts where it makes sense to have a clear default. We are setting a smart default for where we show which kind of version, but still let the user decide to switch to the other version, still let the user decide how they prefer to write content in some kind of way, and make that a fixed setting. It doesn't all have to be ruled by just one line. It can make a lot of sense to think very deeply about where would which kind of view make the most sense as a default, and then see, do we want to allow this flexibility in each and every single case? And do we want to make this a setting everywhere? Or are there cases where it just doesn't make sense to switch to the other one? I'm not sure. I still think flexibility under the hood is amazing. But let's look at the context and let's make sure it's going to work as a default in the right way that we hope the user will expect.
Absolutely. With these words, I want to end this meeting because we're at time and we need to jump to our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Denise. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Marcel,
Thank you,
for joining
everyone.
us.
Bye.
Bye.